You guys are hilarious. I was looking at some of the comments pre-show, and whoever said true crime is just conspiracy theory for girls. Greetings! I'm your host, Jason Myles, and welcome to another episode of this Revolution Podcast. Quickly, before we get started, please hit like. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and also the notification bell so you're alerted whenever we go live. And we're constantly adding new shows and doing live streams on channels. As always, thank you to all the subscribers on YouTube and Twitch, and the audio-only podcast formats you find us on. Also, thank you to all the patrons. Collectively, you are the fuel and the engine that keeps TIR moving along. So if you're enjoying what we do here and want access to the post-show champagne room, which we will be going into this evening, and we will open up the phone lines. Oh, yes. The phone lines will be open in the champagne room. And again, you guys were in the champagne room. They got taken down last Tuesday. Talked to Toussaint today. She just shook her head. When I told her that they got taken, she shook her head. Maybe that's a good thing. I said, no, put it back on. She was like, oh. But I've been reading your guys' comments on it. It's been hilarious. I don't know if we can replicate it tonight, but again, I'm opening the phone lines. You guys are hilarious enough in the comments. Certainly will be entertaining on the phone lines. But if you want access to the Champagne Room, see Champagne Room's past and present. If you want to listen to the Champagne Room on the audio only, Apple Podcasts has a subscribe feature. If you want to hear all those, just get subscribed. For as little as $3 a month or $30 for the year, you have access to Champagne Room's past and present. Be part of the live studio audience for the Pascal Room there. Very good ones. Questioning the usefulness of multipolarity with Kali Akuna, many people's favorite on the show, Dr. Paul Cohn. And you could also join us for movie night. So it's fun. I'm surprised how many people had not seen Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Also, for people that like the show theme song, I finally put it on Spotify. I put that whole album on Spotify. Finally. Spotify has a new feature now where they no longer take your own music down off YouTube to collect royalties. So there you go. Also, tickets are on sale for the live book launch and meet and greet November 18th. Wherever you're watching the show or listening to the show, there are links in the description. And there's only a limited amount of tickets because we're doing it in a small, intimate place. Chris Contos from Machine Head, Craig Cicero from Forbidden Death, Rick Hunolt from Exodus, and I don't know who else is going to show up because there's also some other people that said they wanted to come. The hell of people are excited about this, about the talk that we're going to have. We will be taking questions from our small, intimate audience after a short panel discussion. There's going to be a lot of fun mingling. So, again, wherever you're watching or listening to the show, tickets are on sale. Now, with all that out of the way, let me bring in my guest. Usually, she comes here and hangs out with us on the weekend, but she's hanging out with just me. So you guys get a very, very, very small glimpse of what this would have to deal with being my friend. So please welcome comedian Taylor Hern.
Hey, I am gonna say I think you might have the wrong mic, buddy. I think
Why?
maybe because you sound like you're in a tin can.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Huh. It says I'm on the right mic.
Okay, I just wanted you to know. I didn't want your audio to be messed
Hey.
up.
Oh, I don't know why the thing is still low. That's weird. It says I'm on the right mic.
Okay, cool.
Well, here, be entertaining while I try to figure it out.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, everybody. I'm Taylor. I am from the Ozarks. If I could tell you anything right now, That yeah, I do agree, Charles. I think it might be your headphone mic. But then also, Ozark Circle for Choice is a mutual aid organization that is helping ensure abortion access in the Ozarks. We help people with travel, meeting financial goals. We help with anything that people might need when they're getting an abortion. And there's no like turfy bullshit here. Like just anybody who needs reproductive care, we want to do it. We're
Do I sound
on.
different now?
Yeah, you sound much better. You sound like we're in the same room.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Sorry. Go ahead. Talk about abortions.
Hell yeah, abortions, baby. But abortion should be safe and accessible to everybody, and that's what we believe. So if you are looking to help out a red state that is doing helping abortion care, Ozark Circle for Choice on Instagram. A lot of ways to help out. We appreciate anything. Somebody says, "Hey Taylor, I saw Dune is releasing a Lego set." Or Lego's releasing a Dune set. I did see that. Unfortunately, I suck at doing miniatures, and I wished I had the personality for it. But they do have one of the little miniature Baron Harkonnens, and I'm gonna see if I can just buy that.
And you're talking about the remake of Dune, not the '84 Dune, because you won't watch the '84 Dune.
It's no, I'm not watching. It's unwatchable. It is just. It's not. Okay. Oh, now I've upset Jason.
You haven't upset a damn thing. I have no opinion on Dune. I'm just saying you're throwing Molotovs into
Here's the thing.
library right now.
I'm a Lynch fan. I'm a huge David Lynch fan, and that it's not a good Dune adaptation. It's a hard thing to do right, and there were a lot of things wrong with that. But one day we're gonna get Dune Part 2.
Look, nothing is cooler than Sting in that movie.
Yeah.
No? You don't think so?
No.
Or are you just one of those like it's just not true enough to the essence of the book?
It just does. Like, here's the thing: Dune it's really hard to understand when you're reading the book, and the night like it just you don't and like when you watch Lynch's version of it, it is just so much more confusing. Like it was to be fair, it was underfunded. They did not give David Lynch total creative control. There were a lot of things that were done wrong with that, and it just doesn't hit for me. Somebody said Dune is almost entirely info dumping. Yeah, it is. And now this is how I've been for the last 6 months when I got deeply depressed and read all of the Dune books.
Jesus. I mean, the Dune intro is like 8 minutes, right?
Yeah.
That's a long intro.
Mm-hmm.
To attempt to tell you what the hell you're seeing.
Yeah. I'm so sorry that I have spun another conversation off into Dune.
Hey, that's fine. That's what people came here for. They came here. They saw you were here, and you didn't start the Dune talk. Just remember that.
Yeah.
You're just replying to the people. You're like, this time. She twirls her mustache. We all watch or listen to true crime podcasts or watch true crime shows. If you're too cool for school and don't bother with it for whatever reason, you still know someone who does indulge themselves in the titillating macabre details of murders solved and unsolved, tales of serial killers and tragic suburban murders of families or children. Take the media fascination around the killing of young JonBenet Ramsey. But why are we so addicted to this dark, gruesome genre? Every year, there's a new documentary on Charles Manson or a humanizing tale of someone like Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, Richard Ramirez. And we can't forget the countless tales of murders that may not have the same fanfare as serial crime, but tends to happen to a middle-class family in the safe confines of a suburban setting. How does our consumption of the true crime genre affect the way we understand criminal motivations and the justice system? How do we understand forensic science? How does it influence the way we comprehend guilt, innocence, and justice? To discuss this with me, I have my good friend, true crime aficionado, Taylor Hern. Taylor, You and I were talking about how we were going to discuss this because we had a
Hmm.
true crime show the other day. And you said, let's talk about the origins of true crime. And you just jumped out with, you said the name of the murders. I didn't remember the name, but I know the name of the book, Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. And there's also a movie. There's a movie that was in the 50s or
Cap-
60s, In Cold Blood, I think.
Yeah, and then the Capote starring Philip Seymour Hoffman was based around a lot of his time investigating and writing that book.
Why do you think that story is the catalyst for modern day true crime? And, what is it that about that story that resonates with people, in your opinion?
I think there's a lot that goes into it. It was far from the first book or, novel or whatever you want to call it written about true crime. But I think part of what like drew people to that was the fact that it was like this like white Lutheran family, and just seemingly like out of nowhere and for nothing. They were like everything. I think like the girl was like about to get engaged. She was like a senior in high school, and she's like
Mm.
either engaged or about to get engaged to her like Catholic boyfriend, and that's like the biggest drama like this family has. And like they are just like very like middle class, just like people on the farm. And I think what drew people in was, I think a lot of people that maybe hadn't, I don't know, had identified as much in true crime, really looked in and was like, oh, like this could happen to me. And I do think like we see kind of like a rise in like that paranoia
Mhm.
that I think we have kind of like hit fever pitch like right now in the current day of, oh, it could happen to me. And I think that's why people latched onto that story. And another reason I think so, that I don't think could be discounted, it's a good book, it's well written, um and it does, I think, appeal to more of like your human, you know I think your human nature to like try to be forgiving or try to find the understanding and why people do what they do.
Which gets into my next question. In the book In Cold Blood, uh, Capote wants to elicit sympathy for the murderers and not portray them simply as monsters. Why do you think the true crime genre has gotten so far away from attempting to tell the totality of the story and not just villainizing the killers?
You know, I I think the more people have like felt out of control in their real lives
Hmm.
of work and home life and all these, I think the more that people feel they can't control that anymore, which I think is a feeling that we can all relate to. It's like, I think I was talking to you the other day, like I was so thankful that I was just like able to work from home for one day, because I was just like kind of feeling shitty. And like when you say that sentence out loud, that's insane. Like if I'm feeling shitty, I should just be able to like take the day off because I have a fake email job and nothing really matters. Not to get like too nihilistic about it, but I think that like people now need someone to blame. And I think that
Mhm.
is just I think that's a rise, like also maybe like post 9/11. We
Hmm.
need a bad guy and we need somebody to blame. And I yeah, so I think maybe that's just we have just evolved to needing someone to blame for things. And
Interesting.
we need them to be all bad because we don't want to. I think a lot of us are feel so overwhelmed
Mhm.
that like we don't want to have to like actually have to search out to be like, oh hey, like this person's bad, but like, or what this person did was bad, but is this person fully bad? Because that's the hard thing to have to think through.
That's interesting. Do you think there's something to be said about the fascination with protecting middle class security? Because a lot of the stories that we hear don't really, there's serial killers that have racked up, excuse me, insane numbers, but they're murdering prostitutes.
Hmm.
Um, doesn't get the same fanfare. There was a series that I don't know if we talked about this, or I don't know if you saw it, Murder in the Bayou.
I haven't seen it. No.
See? See, but it takes place in a
I can't stand you.
Hey, look, I'm gonna be a douche the whole show.
Yeah, I figured.
But this gentleman killed a good number of women that were all poor, came from poor and working class families in like bad areas. And I won't get into it, but yeah, it scared the bejesus out of me watching the whole thing, because I don't think he ever gets caught. I don't remember if I watched it all the way through, because once I realized who the guy was, it was one of the things where I just turned it off because it got too real.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to resonate the same way. There's another killer, I want to say in Cleveland. He was somewhere in the Midwest, I thought, that had killed like, some insane amount of sex workers out there. And a lot of them were, bad neighborhood. They were drug addicted streetwalkers. So a lot of people didn't mind. They interviewed one person that had owned a convenience store across from where the murders happened. And he was like, I didn't mind the guy. What did he say? He said he was taking out the trash. It was kind of frightening thing to hear a human say about other humans. But there's something about the way we get all huddled around the screen when it's about some one-off crime in a suburb, or a serial killer like a Richard Ramirez or Ted Bundy. And, what is it about these people that we always have to make them into superstars in some sort of weird way as well?
Yeah, on the first part of like, why do these cases like of like middle class, like blonde white girls, like that's even Nancy Grace, which I watched a lot of Nancy Grace with my Meemaw, and we have some opinions. But I think part of it is, it's kind of like that old quote of like, nobody sees themselves as broke. Everyone just sees themselves as like a temporarily embarrassed millionaire. And like, I think why you see so many people who, I think a lot of people think they are like much closer to living that like perfect ideal life that has seemingly been shattered than the reality that of somebody that is homeless, or somebody that is like on the brink of society, something like that, when in reality we're all way closer to those negative outcomes than we are being Jeff Bezos, or just like a run-of-the-mill millionaire. So I think a lot of people will be like, oh my god, that could happen to me. It'd be like if I saw like, I don't know, like Beyonce lost her like engagement ring. I'd be like, oh my god, that could happen to me. It's like, Taylor, all of your rings turn your fingers green. You do not need to worry.
You won't have Beyonce's engagement.
Yeah. So it's something like that, or or like, and so I think part of that's where that comes from, is like everyone's like, oh, I see myself in this, and it's like, oh, okay. And then I think like the idea of like how famous some serial killers get, and how they are like kind of humanized, or like, I don't really know the best word for it. I think part of that is just one of those like, oh, if we can make it into something positive, we don't have to think about the negative. Or like, it's kind of like, oh, I'm going to make fun of myself before you can make fun of me. So it's like, I'm going to try to take all the power, I guess, maybe away from this. But I will say, like, I used to stand up comedy, and I had like an entire like 5-minute bit about like how I thought Ted Bundy was hot, which, here's the thing, objectively, you can make the case that he was handsome. I'm not saying that he is. Listen, I have matured past that and realized like that's like grossly like insensitive to victims, but it was what was funny and people really liked it. And I think also that's just like another thing is just like you hear one person saying it and then it just like rolls on, and then everybody's like, oh yeah, like I want to fuck Ted Bundy, and it's like, guys, we gotta take a break.
These are jokes, people. Let me tell a few of them.
We gotta stop watching Amy Schumer stand-up specials. Like, yeah, like things are getting weird.
The whole Ted Bundy phenomenon, I've always found real funny that he's like this genius criminal that was able to outsmart and out handsome his victims when he's literally the basis of the Buffalo Bill character in Silence of the Lambs that just kind of fooled women by saying that he had a broken arm and then hit him over the head. Like that's
Yeah.
not using your suave personality to woo someone in your bedroom. You beat someone over the head and then took him home and did horrible things to him.
Yeah.
But we want to believe that these people are effing geniuses, which
Yeah.
I've never really understood that fascination as well. Why do you think that is?
I think another part of that is that nobody wants to admit that like they got killed by this like kind of easy scam. It's like it's almost like the phishing like emails they'll send out at work. Like nobody ever wants to be the person that accidentally clicks on like the free gift card link at work. So it's like it would be embarrassing, I think to us, so many people like think, oh, this could happen to me. Like I could be hunted down and like sex trafficked at Target. And then they're like, but it would literally take a genius to get me into that van. And it's like, I don't think that's exactly how it's going to go.
For you to get in the van?
Yeah.
Is it going to take one that has a sign that says like free puppies?
Listen, I have long said, and I will be so honest about this, I would absolutely accidentally join a cult. And I would stay there because it took me too long to figure out it wasn't a cult. It wouldn't take a lot to fool me. I'm gonna be very honest.
Mm-hmm. Did you be in a cult?
Not because I wanted to.
Look, that's another show, but definitely there's always a true crime show about cults. And I do find it fascinating that I'm seeing before, because I'm from the Bay Area, I'm kind of fascinated by the People's Temple because a lot of that happened in San Francisco with Jim Jones. So there's always a documentary about, I feel like every year that massacre happened, there's a documentary or there's some special about it. But now there's all these other cults that people are Nexium, and there was like another sex cult in San Francisco. I've read about some crazy ones in Southern California and Hawaii. Crazy sex cults. The cult thing is something I'm like, word? Like, I thought you guys all died off with the hippies, no?
No, they're alive and well.
Oh. What impact, if any, does the media and entertainment industry have on our fascination with true crime, in your opinion?
I think. How do I want to answer that? I think media has always like been at like the forefront of true crime. Even like you see like a lot of I cannot form this thought. This is so embarrassing. What I'm trying to say is that I think that newspapers and everything, I think that's where true crime like maybe kind of started. And I think we have like this innate thing that wants to know more. And I think newspapers see like that's what sells. And I think that's why I feel like every time I am just like flipping through a newspaper or like on, like my local news channels page, it's all like these like gory true crime stories. And I think it's because that's what gets most clicks. But I think they're always going to be linked because, it is newsworthy at times, but then to what degree are we only getting information from the police? And I think that's where the media is tough on true crime. If that made any sense. I don't know that it did. I'm so sorry.
I mean, you're not going to have the exact answer. This isn't like a quiz for degree. I do want to get into how this affects the way we see the world.
Yes.
And you and I were having a conversation about how you had to stop watching and listening to you listen to true crime podcasts. I can't listen to people talk about true crime. I need to see poorly reenacted reenactments.
Yeah.
I need to hear Bill Curtis's voice. If I don't hear those two things, I'm just not interested. If Bill Curtis isn't narrating it, like that man
Okay.
has to live forever.
I'll get the message in with the yoga ladies too. I'll see if we can see
Part-time yoga teacher.
a part-time yoga teacher.
Part-time
No
yoga teacher.
crystals.
No
Okay.
crystals.
Okay.
But a lot of these stories definitely are about the innocence of victims, and sometimes there's a weird attempt at humanizing the killer. There was one that I did watch that Bill Curtis didn't narrate because it's a newer case that happened in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of the guy's name. His name was Chris something.
Was it Chris Watts?
Yes.
That literally broke my heart. That is such a sad thing that happened. What he did to his
Talk
family.
a little bit about that.
So Chris Watts was married to a woman. I think it's Shanann Watts. Okay. I didn't want to say Shannon like a hillbilly. Shanann Watts, and they had 2 daughters. And Shanann was pregnant with their third. And he annihilated his whole family and like disposed of his daughters like they were trash. Killed the mother of his children. According to him, so he could be with another woman. And that was kind of right around when I was like kind of trying to pull back a little bit from true crime, because I have like diagnosed OCD, and that it wasn't good for me to like be consuming that all the time. And I just remember just like being overwhelmed with how sad it is and how horrific the whole ordeal was. And then we touched on this a little bit earlier. And then like when you hear Chris Watts, almost immediately the next thing after you hear like, oh, hey, he annihilated his whole family. Also, he gets hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of horny letters from women across the country a day. And it's so bizarre to me that is the case.
Why do you think, again, why do you think, before I ask this question, in a band I was in with my ex, we did a video, and the guy that directed that video made this crazy ass movie called The Period. So he was like, it was about a woman with a never ending period. It was this movie. So he was really into blood. There was so much blood in that video. But anyway, he would like ask us like, oh, who do you want to be in the video? I have an idea for this girl. She's really cool. And she was in a relationship with some serial killer. I can't remember which one. And he's like, we should get her. And we didn't end up getting the woman. I think she wanted too much money. And I was just like, this is all just so bizarre. But what do you think it is about people that are attracted to serial killers? And not just women. There's also like men that have a kind of morbid fascination with these people as well, almost like anti-heroes, like people that love to talk about Charles Manson. They almost pull like whataboutisms about Charles Manson. I saw a musician that I am a fan of, but he was wearing kind of one of those kind of ironic Richard Ramirez shirts. It's almost like we're disconnected from the actual horrors of what happened. Like I think because they didn't put those kids on the stand. For anyone that knows, Richard Ramirez was a Night Stalker, killed a bunch of people in LA and the San Francisco Bay Area, but he also molested a bunch of children. He would let them go. And a few of they found a few kids that were willing to testify, but they didn't want to bring the kids on the stand. They're like, we got them for the murders. We don't really need to get them for the child molestation.
Yeah.
So they didn't bring the kids on the stand. So that really never came to light in the trial that he was a serial child rapist. Do you think when the true totality of the crime comes to light, there's less fanfare? Do you think these people just like bad boys and these guys are the ultimate bad boys?
I will say, in regards to women being attracted to serial killers, I don't know if it's just like a weird, I don't know, just if I love them, they won't hurt me situation. I don't really know. I look at Chris Watts, I just see like a dude I graduated from high school with. Has kind of the same look, just to be honest. Um, but I do think maybe sometimes just like something in people's brains just flip and they're like, I have to know everything about this person. Um, I have a friend. It's not like a romantic pen pal situation. But he exchanges I can't I'm so sorry to my friend who's like business I'm airing out on a
Hey,
live stream.
we don't know who that friend is.
You don't.
Sarah, coming at you. We don't know who you are.
It's a man.
Oh,
It,
Timothy.
Timothy, yeah, it's you, buddy. Um but he exchanges letters with a woman in Texas that is on, I don't know if it's like death row or just like life without parole, but he exchanges letters with her. Um and he's just like, I asked him about it and he said it's just like a, he knows what to say. He's like, I want to know, and I want to like know what kind of person does this. And I think at the root of a lot of true crime is, I think a lot of people couldn't um I think most people can't imagine what it would be like to take somebody's life and enjoy doing it. And so I think there's just like this thing in our brain that's just like, we can't comprehend it, so we're trying to understand it. And I also think a big part of true crime is that we all love gossip, whether we'll admit it or
Mm.
not. I'm a terrible gossip. I love to gossip. I love to know things that I shouldn't know. Um, and I think that drives a lot of it as well. I think it drives that fascination. And I think, at least where I'm from, I assume this is like this in everywhere, but we're like a very like story driven culture. And it's like, I remember when I was a kid, I would go to the sale bar with my pawpaw, and like we would sit at the sale barn, and like him and his buddies would like talk about what was going on in the town, and who had died and who had died of what. And if there was like a big true crime, like somebody robbed the bank or like like stole an ATM or something.
Mhm.
Oh, we talked about it the whole time. We nailed down suspects, motives, whatever. And so I think there's just, it's something easy to talk about, maybe. I don't know.
During the shelter in place in 2020, a lot of these true crime projects, which were already popular, but they definitely blew up bigger. A lot of shows blew up bigger
Hmm.
during 2020.
A lot of people started podcasts. Some of them aren't around today.
No. As the late Craig Mack said, you won't be around next year. My rap's too severe. Need flavor in your ear. But seriously,
Hmm.
this stuff really blows up when people's downtime.
Hmm.
It's still popular. It's not like it fell off. A lot of things fell off. To your point, a lot of things fell off
Hmm.
when we were able to get back out and be a part of society again. But there's still this fascination with this genre that I think really colors the way we see the world. It definitely colors the way we see the justice system. Now, again, I want to bring this up again.
Hmm.
You were saying when we were having our phone conversation that you felt that you had to like kind of disassociate from it for a while because it was depressing you.
Hmm.
There's a person in the chat that says they're triggered by propaganda and those murder shows, feeling that our lives getting less valued. Again, I think if you watch those shows, they kind of most of them end in the same way, which is that the crime is committed by someone that they knew personally,
Hmm.
rarely just Joe random. So that's very different than, I guess, I don't know, some serial killer at large. Why did you feel you had to disconnect from it? Was it just depressing you, or was it
Um,
making you look at everybody skeptically?
it was making me look at everybody skeptically, and I'm a big believer in that, like, we should all like band together with our community, and that our local, like your local, like people around you, like those are the people that can help you.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's good to like automatically think, those negative things. Also, this was I struggled with it my whole life, but I officially had gotten diagnosed with OCD, and I was talking to my therapist about like what does my day look like, and I was telling her, well, I work at that time I was working like 12 hours a day, and it's like, and I'm just listening to podcasts the whole time because like I'm not having any social interaction. I live alone. And she was asking me, she was like, oh, well, what kind of podcasts do you listen to? And I was like, oh, yeah, I listen to a lot of murder podcasts. And she's like, oh, hey, do you think maybe this is why you feel unsafe in your home and you keep having these like vivid, like scenes in your head that of somebody breaking in and murdering you? And I was like, oh, damn, I don't know. Could they be connected? And I will tell you, like, literally within a week of like saying, hey, like I am not going to like consume this, I felt better. And I'm not saying if you consume true crime that you need to stop. For me, it was just again um for my mental health. But then also I had a really I had an interesting conversation with a friend, and I actually asked her for permission to share this. Um that she one of her family members that she was really really close with was like brutally murdered. It was horrific, and it she describes it as like the worst thing that could ever happen to a family, and that like she like I can't even convey the grief that had just been like ripped into their family. And a true crime podcast covered the murder and was making like little tee hee ha ha jokes. And she talked about how like dehumanizing it felt for family members and how awful it felt that like people were consuming the worst thing that is ever going to happen to them um as like entertainment and laughing. And when she's like, and like I struggle to like be even able to move on. No, I'm never going to see them again.
Oof.
And hearing that perspective, I was like, wow. And so that just like I think made me like evaluate my relationship with a lot of media. And I think you can be critical of media and still listen to it. I am a Taylor Swift fan. I have to be critical of of things all the time, but I can still enjoy it. And I think that is what I have a difficulty with a lot of true crime these days is something somebody mentioned down below is the propaganda. Because a lot of times where they are pulling their information from are from local newspapers, from police reports, from court documents, which are typically going to tell the side of the police. And so you never really know what the full story is. And I don't know. It's just like, is that something that I want to consume as entertainment right now?
Well, let me ask this question then.
Yeah.
There's a show about murderers, and it's literally people that are in prison. They're talking from behind the glass, and they're talking about the crime or crimes that got them in prison. Is that better, or is that worse, or does that speak more to a degradation of society that we kind of have to consume so much pain as entertainment?
Yeah, I think shows like that, I think a lot of those appeal to like I think a lot of at least Americans, US Americans, we're very carceral. Like even sometimes like when I'm joking, like I will just like feel it like just like pop out, and I don't like actually mean it, but it's like a thought in my head of like the other day I said that somebody should go to prison for life. For life. Because they were blocking traffic. And I'm just like, it can't be that serious.
Yeah.
But and that's like obviously it's a joke, and that's like a little bit of a hyperbole. But I think that is what drives a lot of us to watch this, is we feel like very carceral. And I think those shows in particular, we can be like, okay, hey, what I'm about to learn about, I already know that the bad guy is being punished. So it's like when we see, like, we know they're behind bars, this can't happen to me. And so I think sometimes that makes people feel better.
Do you think people feel better that the bad guy is punished?
I think people think they will feel better when the bad guy's punished. I
Which is interesting because if you've been a victim of
and
violent crime, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
okay, and I want that as a very important caveat. And what I mean by that is, I think people who are like outside of the situation
Mhm.
think they will feel better knowing that somebody got electrocuted over this.
Mm.
Or knowing now from a victim's perspective, I can't speak to that. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of people think they will feel better knowing that this person, was lethally injected. Like, you know, like Timothy McVeigh, I think is a good, like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, like I think like that's, I think people think like, oh, all of this hurt that we all feel around the Oklahoma City bombing,
Mhm.
um, it would go away. Because I remember when he was executed, and I remember like my parents being excited about it. Um, and I think that's another thing that I think true crime has done to us is, um, I think it has made us forget that how like final the death penalty is.
Oh, I mean, let's talk about Timothy McVeigh for a second and talk
Yeah.
about how American made he is, right?
Hmm.
He kind of comes to be in a time where a lot of people are anti-state,
Hmm.
and we don't really
After
have
like,
a left in the sense of the way we see ourselves now. And he hung out and watched Waco,
hmm
which is a pretty tragic miscarriage of justice. Um, it's the state trying to flex this muscle domestically. So we're seeing for the first time, maybe, I shouldn't say the first time because you had the move bombing, but we're seeing in live time for a lot of people, maybe it's the first time that they're seeing this, the state um showing, just kind of toppling these people that didn't bother anybody. They stockpiled some weapons, but they
hmm
didn't bother anybody,
yeah.
right?
Oh, I
And
agree.
and he also was reading some horrible literature at the same time too, right? But
Mhm.
this kind of showed him that, the America has to be stopped. The state has to be stopped. Um, his solution was extremely gruesome, but
Mhm.
he is a homegrown terrorist.
Like domestic terrorist.
Domestic, if there's ever a definition of quote unquote domestic terror, and that guy literally just saw the state act a damn fool to a bunch of regular ass people. Those guys weren't trained in that house
Mm-mm.
anything more than like target shooting. They didn't understand position. I think it took a couple days for like 6 soldiers to get position on that house.
Yeah, I think so.
So, you know, to sit there and watch that whole thing happen,
Mhm.
he definitely got radicalized by seeing US state violence. And as tragic as Oklahoma City was, it felt like it was real quick for them to put him to death. Like, how long did it
It
take for him?
wasn't
It
it
wasn't long at
wasn't
all.
long. I mean, like, in the sense of, like, "Hey, we're gonna run some appeals and make sure this person has, like, due process." Um, and also just, like, while we're kind of on that, while you're looking it up, I think that's another thing that I have seen in the rise of true crime is, like, the TikTok girlies,
Mm,
not just the girlies, I say that, the
yeah.
people that cover true crime on TikTok, that's the right way to say it. Um, they seem they get very mad when, suspects innocent until proven guilty, whether they clearly did it or not. Um, they get very mad when they will refuse to talk to the cops or basically anything that they're due under the law. Like I saw somebody the other day on Twitter, which is not a great place to be engaging in legal discourse. But it was just some horrific crime that happened, and this person um had a really good lawyer. And somebody was like, he doesn't deserve a good lawyer. And I'm like, yes, he does, even if he's just fucking scumbag. And it seems that we seem to be like, okay, well, like if we think they're guilty because we've seen some TikToks on it and we've solved it, put them to death. And it's like, hey, dogs, we can't do that. And I think that's been a really interesting thing that I've seen probably like the last like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, there's the oversimplification of narratives in true crime is my big problem, and
Yeah.
kind of the portrayal of the justice system is one where police are smart. Number one, I have a huge problem with that.
Yeah.
But bigger than that, I think there's things that kind of hide in plain sight, and I believe I mentioned this on the last show that you were on, and I'll mention it again because I definitely want to hammer this home.
Mhm.
In the Richard Ramirez 4-part series on Netflix, the police can't figure out who, what, where he is.
Mm-mm.
It isn't until they catch his cousin, I forget for what, and they beat him up. They admit to beating him up
Mhm.
that they find out who he is, and you get a very, very small tidbit of his life and kind of the dark turmoil that was in his life as well. I believe he witnessed a uncle or cousin kill someone in front of
Yeah.
him. So, he didn't have a wonderful life and was just born evil. But we gloss over that. And that series is really focused on crack police work. But I watched it the first time and I watched it again because I was like, did I miss that? And I
Yeah.
watched it again to kind of like, am I missing something here? And it's just all about crack police work. And these guys were not good.
No.
And most cops, as we were reading about true crime for this, we're also reading about kind of the origins of these stories, especially in the 19th century, about crime and how some people that wrote these stories also were criminals and they were on the forefront of forensic science. And true crime does this thing with forensics,
Oh Lord.
where it is the end all be all of science. It's all about fingerprints. It's all about DNA. And once they have that, then hey, I know it's all done. So when people get put into jury pools and you hear forensic evidence, the forensic evidence that was coming out and I'm not saying I know this person's guilty or innocent, just throwing this out there.
Okay.
In the Scott Peterson trial.
I would love to have this conversation with you off air about Scott Peterson.
The cadaver dogs that never hit. Scott Peterson, I actually have a whole part. I don't know if we're going to include it in kayfabe. We're going to go over that edit this weekend about the Scott Peterson trial and how that was portrayed and kind of the miscarriage of justice that is the rise of Nancy Grace during that trial. And the way that evidence was getting, I watched that trial religiously because those people, if you've watched the A&E documentary on it since the one from 2018, those were all the news people I watched every morning in the Bay Area. And that happened a couple hours south from me. The more you find out about that area, like it's not as pristine. It actually was kind of a bad neighborhood they lived in. The cadaver dogs allegedly hit on her scent, but from the DA's case, he would have taken her body, put it in a car, drove that car down a pier, then put it in a boat. And they're like, yeah, it's like the dog smelled her body in the car.
What I tell people about that case in particular, now again, I'm nobody, is that I don't know if Scott Peterson is innocent or guilty.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. What I do know is I don't think that they had enough evidence to convict him beyond a reasonable doubt, which is what is in our Constitution. Those are the rules that we all agreed to. So that's where I've always been with it. Because I kind of had a similar being like, oh, that's what that really was. Cause like I was a little bit younger, like when that was all happening. And to be fair, I saw all of it on Fox News.
And you know what? Taylor, I can't begrudge you because I don't know too many people that actually watch a trial, because when you do watch a trial, I remember Court TV when it started because my mom.
Open Court, baby.
Oh, bless her soul. She watched Court TV so much back in the day. And there's always a commentator. It's like sports.
Oh, yeah.
So you can't even really watch the whole trial without someone commentating and trying to explain to you what's going on. And if you've ever been in jury for a hardcore murder trial, you don't understand a lot of the stuff people are talking about. You really don't.
They had open court that that showed on the local access channel that we were able to get off the antenna, where I grew up in the Ozarks in Arkansas, and they would air open court, and we got to see my brother on there one time.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, we used to watch open court in my Mima all the time.
Was it something stupid like putting a firecracker up a local?
No, he was not. He was not putting firecrackers in anybody. It was even dumber than that.
DUI.
Even better. That came later.
Okay, he was peeing off the bridge or something.
I will tell you. Somebody said convicted of cow tipping. No, he got caught smashing mailboxes, and the mailbox that he smashed was the county judges.
That is redneck bullshit 101.
Baby, I have my Ozarks bona fides. I can show you my card anytime you need to see it.
God, that is like, why? But what is that? What your parents said? It's just like, why did you do that?
They were like, well, Daniel, I wasn't very smart of you now, was it?
I couldn't even, at that point, you're so mad that you can't even get mad.
It was so funny. And my dad went to court with him because he was like 18 or 19. I mean, old enough to know better. He was not like a kid. He was a full adult.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad went to court with him, and he's like, well, we know whose docket you won't be on, because they had to go like a county over, because obviously the county judge couldn't like proceed over this.
And it's not like he doesn't know that judge.
Exactly.
You give this Daniel Hern the goddamn.
Yeah.
All the time you can give is smash my mailbox.
Mm-hmm.
And my Jet magazine all over the highway.
Just incredible work. It was not hard for me to be the favorite child.
Just not be Daniel. Just not get caught drinking Budweiser in homeroom.
I mean, literally.
That's who should have been on the show. I got a true crime for you.
You know, he's real into QAnon right now. I don't.
QAnon got me. I don't even want to say the name. It got me pulled for a week. It got this whole channel down for a week.
I'm so sorry.
A whole week.
I meant it in a nice way. I've also.
I can't. I dare not utter. It's like Candyman. You know, you say it 3 times and bam, your channel's gone.
He's also really into motorcycles right now. No helmet, of course.
That doesn't, good for him, because don't look like a fucking moron riding around with a helmet on.
Yeah.
You're out there, helmet off. You're on a dirt bike anyway. Fuck it. Right?
At this point, it'll knock some sense into him. I mean, we can't go any lower, you know?
I definitely want to meet this gentleman.
Okay.
Oh, you made it sound like that's not a good thing.
I just don't recommend that anybody spend any time with him. I mean, yeah, do you want to hear like the finer points of like Sublime's discography? You know what you guys could talk about though?
Yep.
He is a enormous Metallica fan. Loves Metallica.
I still want to hear about the Sublime stories. You say no more, fam, as the young people say.
Yeah.
You've said nothing but a word now. I'm just going to sit there fast. And he's like, tell me more.
Well, no, he just,
what is the 40 ounce to freedom?
Truly. Sublime's not my thing, personally.
Mhm.
It's really his thing though. I will say one nice thing about him is he has the most varied music taste of anybody I've ever met. The last time I saw him, he was working on his truck in our parents' front yard.
Shirt on or off?
I'm I think I think it would have been like last December. So he probably
Okay, so
shirt
yeah, shirt on.
I think he probably had his shirt on. Um and we go from like Hank Senior to like Metallica to Smashing Pumpkins to like Big and Rich to Linkin Park. And I'm just like, are you just playing every CD that you have?
I again say no more.
Mhm.
I'm supposed to be doing a book thing in Oklahoma.
Where in Oklahoma?
I'm telling you.
Oh, not going to tell me. Okay.
Oh, Tulsa.
You know I live like an hour and a half away from Tulsa, right?
I don't know.
Okay, well,
I'm trying to figure out where it's been so long since I drove across the country, and that's a good thing, that I don't remember everything about where everywhere is.
well, I would assume that you would know where everything is from Fayetteville.
That's still one of the scariest shows I ever played. I mean, it ended up being fine, but just when the navigation's like, we still got to keep going on this dirt road to this
Yep.
fucking shack
In the middle of
in the
town.
middle of the woods.
Yeah. R.I.P. Backspace.
I
I had to
oh.
get a tetanus shot because a nail went straight through my shoe one time.
Oh, I don't doubt it, because I was like, I think this is an old juke joint.
I think it might have. I don't know what Backspace used to be. Backspace was a quintessential, textbook definition DIY space in
Yeah.
Fayetteville. None weirder. I miss it, and I think we should all protect DIY spaces. I think that's a
Side note, yeah, side note, all the time. I miss all those spaces. Those spaces where you're going to hear the craziest, coolest music. You're going to always see original lineups. Protect DIY spaces at all costs, because large corporate interests have infiltrated all the small spaces. They don't really give a damn if those things go away. A lot of them get turned into apartments, especially where I'm from, San Francisco Bay Area. So many cool.
That's literally what's happening to Backspace. They're turning it into student housing.
All right, moving on.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too angry.
Same.
How is the internet affecting the way we see true crime? Are they helping it, hurting it? Are they giving more context to it? I mean, there was a case recently. I mean, I think this happened maybe about 10 years ago, where a young lady died. They found her in a water tower.
Oh yeah.
In the Cecil Hotel of Los Angeles, which
Mm-hmm.
I think the last I read about the Cecil, which was earlier this year, it still hadn't been filled, but they turned the Cecil into housing for the unhoused. That was going to be like, permanent supportive housing with services and stuff inside, because it already had so much for people that were low income, quote unquote. And they just decided to turn that whole thing during the shelter in place. But before that happened, it was a hotel slash flop house, and in the middle of downtown LA, a young lady was staying there. She was severely bipolar. A video had surfaced of her on an elevator, and she kind of looks like she's hiding from something. She like peeks her head around the corner and hides, and it looks like there's a ghost chasing her or something. And it became this big whodunit. The internet just took off, and there's other cases where the internet tried to be sleuths and got people hurt, but they ended up kind of destroying the life of one guy, because they, these internet sleuths that are only getting this much information about a case, thought that a guy that was a black metal recording artist from Mexico had killed her because he had some songs about death, like any other good metal musician would have, right? And he did the whole face paint thing, he's evil, but the guy probably a vegan. And so, he stopped doing music because he had got all this hate because people said this is the guy that killed Homegirl. And eventually police find out how it happened. The top of the water tank was open because the maintenance staff just assumed, like, who the fuck would walk in here and try to take a dip?
Yeah.
And case closed, but no one really apologized. And there's another series that came out a few years back called Don't Mess with Cats, where
I couldn't watch it.
Where someone had killed some cats, but they also killed a person.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they went after the wrong guy, and he committed suicide. So how does the internet affect all this stuff as well, in your opinion?
Somebody, and I can't remember who, I'm so sorry,
Okay.
in the comments, I think summed it up the best, and they says, when has the internet helped with anything?
I found the comment. It's right here.
I think that's probably like my ultimate view on it, is that I wish we could just go back to just like playing games on the internet. I don't a lot of things get spun out and into like these big huge conspiracy theories, and like end up ruining people's lives, because like just because somebody is a sketchy person, like, doesn't always mean that they've like fucking killed somebody. Or maybe they look different or whatever it is, and people will like latch onto these theories. And this is an insane comparison, but another place that I see this is like with Taylor Swift fan conspiracies.
About what?
Oh my god, who knows what it is that day.
Okay.
But like it'll, a lot of times it's like surrounding like, oh, is an album gonna drop or whatever. But like you just see these people, they'll like get like one piece of misinformation and it'll spin out into this whole thing. And I think you see that a lot with true crime. And like you said, like there was like that huge like Netflix series that like all but said, hey, this guy did it. He killed Elisa Lam. Which again, in her death, no matter what happened, like that is tragic. Like she had parents that loved her, and she, was going through it, haven't we all?
Yeah.
And we don't need to ruin somebody else's life. And I think sometimes we're stuck in this like weird position of knowing that likely the police aren't going to do their job.
Don't read it. I didn't mean to throw you off. Don't read that. Don't read that.
Okay.
For those listening on the audio only, there's a comment that said, I just want to watch a Chiefs game without Taylor Swift in it.
I'm just happy that she is dating someone on the Chiefs because she looks so good in red. And all that I care, she's having fun. I don't really care what she's doing. I want to listen to the music.
Don't let the comments derail
you. Okay, listen, but I love her so much. Anyway, what were we even talking about? No.
Yeah, kidding. See? Sorry.
The internet. And I think we're stuck in like this weird space of, like a lot of times we talk about like that that the police aren't going to do their job, and they're not going to investigate this properly, and like they may try to pin it on someone that didn't do it or whatever it is. And so it's like, oh, like, do we need people on the internet to dig up these cases? Because there have been some successful, I can't think of one right now, but like there have been some successful cases of like people on the internet like actually digging into something and saying, no, this is what happened. Like the police need to investigate this. But then also being like, hey, we don't have access to all of the information. A lot of people that are like talking about this aren't even in the same town. Or, there's information that hasn't been released to us that can completely alter our perception of like the idea of everything that's going on. And then we end up again with like, I think there's that rush to judgment, or the rush to lock someone away forever and ever. And I think that's where the internet at least for true crime, is
Mhm.
not good.
I mean, in closing, I mean, my problem with the genre, and it's a genre that I've definitely watched. Sadly, I've seen people that I know on there, or I've
Mhm.
met on there, which is incredibly unsettling. Um, but ultimately, it paints a certain picture, in my opinion, of what justice looks like.
Mhm.
Because one of the main narratives, especially in the cold case shows, which most of these shows we talk about are cold case shows, right?
Mhm.
And we can even look at kind of an uptick in true crime in the 70s with 60 Minutes, which was trying to be a more evergreen show because news, no one goes back to watch the news from 4 years ago unless you're like a history student.
Yeah.
So they wanted to have more evergreen topics, and some of those were like, kind of famous murderers and also celebrity gossip. But um 2020, Dateline, a lot of these shows dealt with, kind of big time famous murder cases. And one of the continuous themes of these things is the idea around we must get justice for the victim. And we're talking about justice for a deceased person first and foremost.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, what does that look like? And how does putting this person in an electric chair or under the jail for 1,000,000 years bring about justice? Because as someone that has had a family member murdered,
Mhm.
it doesn't change the way I feel when I go out into the world. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's not safer now because one person is gone.
Yeah.
The conditions and what made said person still exists, but this idea around justice, I think, is a problem. I also think there's a massive problem with the idea around the way law enforcement functions.
Mhm.
These things also kind of uh, wash the legacy of police interrogation as police torture. Again, if you are a watcher of true crime, I've said this on the show, I'll say it again. If you watch something like what happened to the Central Park Five, the same people involved with the Central Park Five, the same tactics they used against those young men, they used in the Preppy murder.
Mhm.
That person actually did commit a crime. So they've been using that to kind of, launder their legacy as well, because they lost a lot when the Central Park Five story or the movie hit When They See Us,
Yeah.
um, which kind of relitigated that case for people in a different way, even though that came out, I think, a few years after their exoneration.
I think so. Yeah.
Um, and I think it's important to really understand how criminal justice functions. And I don't think we really do understand that, number one. And number two, I think this is important because we're heading into an election season. And I'm not just talking about for president. I'm
Mhm.
talking about for your sheriff, for your district attorney, for your mayor, city council members, etc. And if you live in a major metropolitan area, probably one of the bigger issues that people are going to be talking about is crime and an uptick in crime.
Mhm.
And in 2020, cities burned all over the United States in the name of George Floyd, in the name of defunding police departments. That never happened. The conditions that created people like George Floyd still exist.
Mhm.
Not too much has gotten better. There are some municipalities that did, in fact, um, move money around in their police department budgets to hire mental health professionals to go out to calls that were nonviolent in nature, and they're doing better. But it hasn't been the antidote across the country, as even people that did call for defunding of police in places like Oakland definitely asked the city to not fire police officers because the crime rates were so high. So I think we have to not get brainwashed and fall down those dark rabbit holes like you found yourself falling down
Mhm.
with some of these stories, because the narrative around crime is still there, and it's still frightening.
Absolutely.
That being said, we're gonna head into the champagne room where Taylor said that she was down to open up the phone lines.
Yeah. I'm excited, y'all.
So last time you were here, we actually got someone that was at the Murtaugh trial.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. That was a weird fucking case.
That is some lowland, lowland, like I mean, you hear you're just just these nicknames. I'm like, okay, let's do it. It was incredible listening to all of them talk about this case. I loved it.
Well, we're going to be in the champagne room. If you guys are patrons, the link is already up. If you want to join us, if you want to call in, if you want to say you guys are wrong, call in and definitely tell me I'm wrong. I will listen to you. I'd rather you call in than cowardly write a comment. You have an opportunity to have your voice be heard.
I'm going to request only praise and admiration. I don't want to be challenged.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm always looking for trouble. And on that note, we are out.